The evening air in the city was cool and calm. The streetlights had just flickered on, and the sound of cars passing in the distance mixed with the quiet chatter of people heading home. Marcus Cole walked slowly down the sidewalk, carrying a small paper bag with some snacks he had bought from a corner store. He wore simple clothes, jeans, a plain shirt, and old sneakers. Nothing about him looked special, and that was how Marcus liked it. He had just come from visiting the neighborhood where he grew up. It was something he did often, to remind himself of where he came from, even though he now lived in a world of tall glass towers and expensive offices. Marcus never forgot these streets. He liked walking without bodyguards or expensive cars just to feel normal. As Marcus crossed a quiet intersection, he noticed a car behind him. The car slowed down, then a red and blue light flashed on the dashboard. Marcus stopped, confused. It didn't look like a police car, just an old sedan with a small light placed near the windshield. A man stepped out wearing a police uniform. His cap was pulled low, and his voice was sharp. "Hey, you! Stop right there!" Marcus turned calmly. "Yes, officer? Is something wrong?" The man, who called himself Officer Kane, walked closer, scanning Marcus from head to toe. "What are you doing around here this late?" His tone was harsh, almost like he was looking for trouble. "Just heading home," Marcus said politely. "I was visiting some old friends." Kane didn't seem satisfied. "ID, now." Marcus reached into his pocket, pulling out his wallet. He stayed calm, but something about this man felt off. The uniform looked cheap, the badge didn't shine like real metal, and Kane's car didn't have any official markings. Marcus handed over his driver's license. Kane looked at it for a few seconds, then glanced back at Marcus suspiciously. "You look nervous," Kane said. "I'm not nervous," Marcus replied evenly. "I'm just wondering why you stopped me." Kane ignored the question. "Empty. Your pockets. All of them." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Is there a reason for this, officer?" "Yes," Kane snapped. "I'm checking for illegal stuff, don't argue." Marcus could feel his heart beating faster, but his face stayed calm. He had learned long ago that anger never solved anything. His father's voice echoed in his memory. "Stay calm, son. In life, your strength is patience, not shouting." He nodded, slowly. "All right." Marcus emptied his pockets. Keys, a folded receipt, a small amount of cash. Kane's eyes went straight to the money. "Hand me the wallet," Kane ordered. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then passed it over. Kane opened it quickly, flipping through the bills inside. A small grin formed on his face when he saw the cash. He stuffed it into his own pocket as if Marcus wouldn't notice. "You sure you're not hiding anything else?" Kane said with a smirk. Marcus looked at him calmly. "You're making a mistake." Kane laughed, a short, cold laugh. "Yeah? What are you gonna do about it? Call your mom?" At that moment, Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. Kane snatched it out before Marcus could reach for it. It was an expensive phone, one of the newest models. Kane raised his eyebrows, surprised that someone dressed so simply carried such a device. "Nice phone," Kane said, holding it up. "You sure this isn't stolen?" "It's mine," Marcus answered firmly. "Please give it back." But Kane just slipped the phone into his jacket. "We'll see about that." Marcus stayed silent. He could feel a mixture of anger and disbelief rising inside him, but he didn't let it show. Losing his temper would only make things worse. Up the street, headlights appeared. Another car was approaching slowly, and Marcus noticed it looked like a real police cruiser this time. He thought about waving, but Kane stepped closer, blocking his view of the road. "Don't try anything," Kane warned, his voice low. "You don't want to make me mad." Marcus stared at him without fear. "You really don't know who you're talking to," Marcus said quietly. Kane sneered. "Oh, yeah? Some guy walking around at night with pocket change? Please, you're nothing special." Marcus didn't answer. He just stood there, his calm expression hiding a storm of thoughts. His life had taught him to deal with people who judged by appearances. And this man, whoever he really was about to learn a lesson he wouldn't forget. The real police car rolled closer, and its headlights washed over the sidewalk. Kane shifted nervously, glancing over his shoulder. He quickly flashed his fake badge, hoping the officers in the car would just drive by. But Marcus knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The flashing lights from the approaching police car grew brighter as it slowed near the curb. Kane's posture stiffened. He gave a quick wave to the passing officers, flashing his badge for just a moment. The cruiser rolled on without stopping, and Kane's shoulders dropped in relief. "See?" Kane said with a grin. "Nobody cares what happens out here." Marcus watched silently. He didn't say a word, but he noted every move Kane made, the way his eyes darted, the way he tightened his grip on the stolen wallet and phone. Kane wasn't just pretending to be tough. He was pretending to be something bigger than he was. "Now," Kane said, snapping his fingers, "shoes off. Let's see if you're hiding anything else." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You're serious? Do it," Kane barked. Marcus crouched down and untied his shoes, moving slowly. As he did, he remembered his father's words again. "If someone tries to bring you down, don't get angry. Let them dig their own hole." Marcus set the shoes aside and stood up straight, calm as ever. "Nothing in there," Marcus said. Kane stepped forward, kicking one of the shoes carelessly. "Humph, guess not." Then he leaned close, his voice dropping low. "You got any more cash? Any jewelry?" "No," Marcus replied evenly. "You already have what was in my wallet." Kane chuckled, shaking his head. "Man, I love this job." "It's not a job," Marcus said quietly. "You're not a real officer." Kane's grin faded for a moment, but then it returned even wider. "You think you're smart, huh? I've been doing this a long time. People like you don't fight back. You just hand it over and keep walking." Marcus stayed silent. Kane mistook his silence for fear. Kane flipped through Marcus's phone. The screen lit up with notifications, messages from names Kane didn't recognize, and a calendar alert that read, "Board meeting at 8 a.m., Cole Global Headquarters, board." "Meeting?" Kane scoffed. "What? You clean the floors in some office building?" Marcus's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile, but he said nothing. Kane shook his head and shoved the phone into his pocket. "Guess I'll keep this until Sure, it's not stolen." "Suit yourself," Marcus replied calmly. "You're making a mistake." Kane stepped closer, trying to intimidate him. "What kind of mistake? You gonna cry to somebody?" Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Something like that." Kane didn't know what to make of Marcus's steady voice. Usually, people looked scared by now, pleading, bargaining, promising not to tell anyone. But this man just stood there, calm and collected, like he had nothing to lose. Kane decided to push harder. "Here's how this works," he said. "You turn around, walk away, and forget this ever happened. I'll keep your stuff as, let's call it a fine. Or," he added with a sneer, "you make it difficult, and maybe I decide to hold you here all night." Marcus crossed his arms. "And then what?" "Then maybe I find something suspicious on you," Kane said. "People believe a man in uniform. They don't believe some stranger." For a moment, Marcus looked Kane directly in the eye. There was no anger, no fear, just quiet strength. It made Kane uncomfortable, though he didn't show it. "Enjoy it while you can," Marcus said softly. Kane laughed loudly, trying to cover his unease. "You talk too much for somebody in your position." A sudden voice interrupted them, a woman stepping out of a nearby doorway, holding her phone. "Hey! What's going on here?" Kane quickly turned, putting on his best fake police voice. "Ma'am, step inside. Official police business. Nothing for you to worry about." The woman frowned, unconvinced. That doesn't look official. Step inside, Kane repeated firmly. His hand brushed against the side of his jacket as if to intimidate her. Marcus spoke up calmly. It's fine, ma'am. Just go home. The woman hesitated but finally backed away, still eyeing Kane suspiciously as she closed the door. Kane glared at Marcus. You trying to get me caught? You're doing that yourself, Marcus replied simply. Kane grabbed Marcus by the arm and shoved him toward the side of the street. Let's move, away from the lights. Marcus didn't resist. He let Kane push him, all the while keeping his cool. In his mind, Marcus was already planning what came next. He didn't need to fight. He didn't need to raise his voice. He just needed to wait. As they reached a darker corner, Marcus's phone buzzed again in Kane's pocket. Kane pulled it out and glanced at the screen. This time it was an incoming call. The name showed Alex, security chief. Kane frowned. Who's Alex? A friend, Marcus said. You should answer. He hates waiting. Kane rolled his eyes and declined the call. Yeah, right. Like I'm gonna talk to your buddy. Marcus smiled faintly. Your choice. A pair of headlights turned the corner, and this time Marcus recognized the sleek black vehicle immediately. It wasn't a police car. It was one of his own security cars. They must have been tracking his phone when he didn't respond. Kane didn't notice yet. He was too busy counting the bills from Marcus's wallet, humming to himself as though he'd already won. See? Kane said, pocketing the cash. Easy money. Should have done this years ago. Marcus glanced at the approaching car. Your luck is about to run out. Kane looked confused for a second, then saw the vehicle slowing near them. His grin faltered just slightly. Who's that? Marcus didn't answer. He just straightened his shirt and waited, calm as ever. The black car slowed as it reached the corner, its headlights sweeping across the cracked pavement. Kane squinted, uneasy. He didn't recognize the vehicle, but something about the way it moved, steady, deliberate, made his stomach tighten. Marcus didn't flinch. He simply stood with his hands at his sides, watching as the car stopped a few feet away. The driver's door opened, and a tall man in a dark suit stepped out. His presence was calm but firm, like someone used to taking control of any situation. Mr. Cole, the man said respectfully, are you all right? Kane blinked in surprise. He hadn't expected anyone to address this stranger so formally. Mr. Cole? He repeated with a nervous laugh. What is this? Marcus tilted his head slightly. Alex, he said to the man in the suit. I was just having an interesting conversation. Alex, Marcus's security chief, looked Kane up and down. This man bothering you? Kane straightened his fake uniform, trying to sound official. Back off, sir. Police matter here, just doing my job. He held up his badge quickly, flashing it like it was real. Alex didn't even glance at the badge. His eyes stayed on Marcus. Do you want me to handle this? Marcus shook his head. Not yet. Let's hear him out. Kane smirked, thinking he still had control. Yeah, you heard him. He doesn't need your help, so you can leave. Alex didn't move. His calm expression didn't change. I'm not going anywhere. Kane turned back to Marcus. Who are you, really? You got some bodyguard following you around? Marcus smiled faintly. Something like that. Kane laughed as if to cover his unease. Doesn't matter who you are. Out here you follow my rules. You don't, you get in trouble. Is that so? Marcus asked quietly. Yeah, Kane said firmly. I could call for backup right now. You'll be sitting in the back of a cruiser before you know it. Alex raised an eyebrow. Then why don't you? Kane hesitated. His bluff was clear. He glanced at Marcus's phone still in his pocket, then tried to shift the topic. Look, I'm not looking to make this a big deal. Just give me some extra cash and we both walk away. Marcus didn't answer right away. He let the silence hang in the cool night air. Kane shifted from one foot to the other, starting to sweat despite the breeze. "You think this is funny?" Kane asked, trying to sound tough again. "I think you're digging yourself into a hole," Marcus said calmly. "Big words," Kane shot back. "What are you, some kind of lawyer?" Marcus shook his head. "No, I'm just someone who's used to people underestimating me." Before Kane could respond, Alex stepped closer. "Sir," he said to Marcus, "should I call the police?" That word, real police, made Kane tense up. "No need for that," Kane said quickly. "I told you I'm already with the police." Alex reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. "What's your badge number?" he asked Kane directly. Kane froze. "Badge number? You don't need to write that down. Confidential." Marcus looked at him, his calm eyes steady. "Real officers never hide their badge number," Kane swallowed hard. "Look, I don't have time for this. Just forget it, all right?" He tossed Marcus's wallet back at him, but he kept the cash and phone. "We're done here." Marcus caught the wallet smoothly. Not quite. Headlights flashed, again from the street corner. This time, it wasn't Alex's security car. It was a real police cruiser. The vehicle slowed, curious about why two men and a suited driver were standing in the dark. Kane panicked. "Stay quiet," he hissed to Marcus. "Don't say a word." But Marcus didn't even look at him. He turned toward the cruiser with a calm wave. The car stopped, and two uniformed officers stepped out. "Everything all right here?" one officer called. Kane quickly stepped forward. "All good, officers. Just questioning this man. Suspicious behavior." He flashed his badge again, fast, hoping they wouldn't look too closely. The officers frowned. "Which precinct are you with?" Downtown Division," Kane muttered. The second officer took a step closer. "Mind if we see that badge? Again?" Kane hesitated, then held it out reluctantly. The first officer examined it under the streetlight, his expression turning serious. "This doesn't look right." Kane forced a laugh. "It's new issue. Must not look familiar yet." Marcus spoke for the first time to the real officers, his tone polite and calm. "I think you should check his ID too. You'll find it interesting. The AA." First officer nodded and looked back at Kane. "Driver's license, now!" Kane tried to protest, but the sharp tone left no room for argument. He handed it over with trembling hands. The officer read it, then looked at Kane sternly. "This doesn't match any department record. You're not a cop." Alex crossed his arms, standing behind Marcus like a silent shadow. "Told you," he said simply. Kane's face went pale. "This is a mistake." "No," Marcus interrupted softly. "The mistake is yours." The real officers stepped forward. "Sir, turn around. Hands behind your back." Kane looked at Marcus desperately. "Come on, man. You're really gonna let them do this? Just let me go. Nobody got hurt." Marcus's voice stayed even. "You stopped the wrong person tonight." As the officers secured Kane, Marcus finally retrieved his phone from Kane's jacket pocket. He brushed the dust off calmly, then looked at Alex. "Call it in. Make sure they know exactly what happened." Alex nodded, already dialing. Kane struggled, weakly, as the handcuffs clicked. "Please, man. I didn't know who you were." Marcus looked him in the eye. "That's the problem. You think respect depends on who someone is." The officers led Kane toward the cruiser. The night was quiet. Again, except for the sound of the engine idling. Marcus stood tall, still calm, still patient. The real story was just beginning. The night air grew tense as the real police officers held Kane by the arm. His fake badge dangled uselessly in one officer's hand. The flashing lights from the cruiser painted the walls of nearby buildings red and blue. Marcus stood calmly, watching without a trace of anger. He adjusted his shirt as if nothing serious had happened. Alex, standing nearby, kept his phone to his ear, quietly updating someone on the situation. "This isn't what it looks like," Kane shouted suddenly, twisting against the officers. "Grip, it's all a big misunderstanding." "Sir, stop resisting," the officer said firmly. "I'm on your side," Kane argued, his voice cracking. "I was just testing him." Marcus raised an eyebrow but didn't speak yet. His calm silence made Kane more nervous than any angry words could have. "Testing him?" the officer repeated. "By taking his wallet and phone?" Kane looked from Marcus to Alex, then back to the officers. "I was undercover. You don't understand." The second officer shook his head. "Undercover with a fake badge and no department record? That doesn't make sense." Alex stepped closer, his voice steady. "Officers, I'm Alex Carter. I'm head of security for Mr. Marcus Cole. We tracked his phone when he didn't respond to calls. This man stopped him on the street, took his property, and tried to scare him." The officers looked at Marcus, surprised by the respectful way Alex spoke to him. Marcus simply nodded, confirming every word. "Marcus Cole?" one of the officers asked, recognition dawning. "As in Cole Global?" Marcus gave a small smile. "Yes, but tonight I'm just a man walking home." Kane froze when he heard the name. His eyes widened in disbelief. "Wait, you're that Marcus Cole? The billionaire?" Marcus looked at him calmly. "Does that change how you treat me?" Kane opened his mouth, but no words came out. The weight of his mistake hit him all at once. The first officer tightened the handcuffs. "You're in serious trouble, sir. Impersonating a police officer is a crime." "Listen, please," Kane begged, his voice almost shaking. "I wasn't gonna hurt him. I just needed money. That's all." Marcus finally spoke, his voice soft but clear. "And you thought pretending to be someone you're not would help?" Kane looked down, ashamed. "I didn't know who you were. I thought you were just some guy walking alone." Marcus nodded slowly. "That's the point. You judged me by what I was wearing, not by who I am." The officers led Kane toward the cruiser, but Marcus raised a hand gently. "Wait." The officers paused, glancing at Marcus. He stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. "Before you take him away, I want to hear something. Why did you do this?" Kane looked up, confused. "Why do you care?" "Because I want to know if this is who you really are," Marcus replied. "Or if you're just lost." Kane hesitated, his pride struggling against the truth. Finally, his shoulders slumped. "I lost my job 2 months ago. Couldn't pay rent. I saw how easy it was to buy a fake badge online. I figured people would just hand over cash if I looked official. I didn't think anyone would stop me." Marcus studied him carefully. There was fear in Kane's eyes, but also regret. "There are honest ways to get help," Marcus said quietly. "But you chose this." The first officer cleared his throat. "Mr. Cole, with respect, we still need to bring him in." "Of course," Marcus said. He stepped back, letting them guide Kane toward the car. But as Kane passed him, Marcus spoke softly, so only he could hear. "This doesn't have to be the end for you, but it is a lesson." Kane blinked at him, unsure what to say. Then the door of the cruiser shut, and the sound of the lock clicking echoed in the night. Alex walked up beside Marcus. "Want me to follow them to the station?" Marcus shook his head. "No need. I'll make a call in the morning. For now, let them do their job." The officers thanked Marcus for his patience and promised to file a full report. As they drove away with Kane, in the back seat, the street grew quiet again. Alex turned to Marcus. "You could have pressed harder. Most people would have." Marcus gave a small shrug. "Most people let anger guide them. I learned a long time ago that calm decisions change more lives than loud ones." They walked back toward the black security car. Marcus slipped his wallet and phone into his pocket, neither item any worse for wear. "Do you want me to drive you home, sir?" Alex asked. Marcus smiled faintly. "No, I'll finish my walk. It's been an interesting night. Alex hesitated. Are you sure? After what just happened? Marcus interrupted gently. I'm fine. And besides, this isn't the first time someone's misjudged me because of how I look. Alex nodded, understanding. I'll keep the car nearby just in case. Marcus continued his walk, the street now empty except for the fading red and blue lights in the distance. He wasn't angry, not even frustrated. Instead, he felt a quiet sadness that someone like Cain believed tricking people was easier than working honestly. But Marcus also felt something else, a decision forming in his mind. He wouldn't let this end as just another arrest. He wanted to turn it into something better, something that could change a life rather than destroy it. The night air was cool against his face as he walked. Somewhere behind him, Alex's car rolled slowly, keeping a protective distance. And far ahead, the lights of the city glowed softly, a reminder that tomorrow would bring new choices for Marcus and maybe even for Cain. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Marcus Cole's penthouse. The city buzzed far below, unaware that its quiet billionaire had been stopped on the street just hours before. Marcus sipped his coffee calmly as his phone rang. It was Alex. They processed Cain last night, Alex said. Turns out he's been running this fake cop scam for weeks, small amounts each time, nothing violent but still serious. Marcus set his cup down. And his story about losing his job? True, Alex replied. Factory layoffs, no record before this, just a man who made bad choices. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Then we'll deal with him honestly. Later that morning, Marcus arrived at Cole Global headquarters. He wore a tailored suit now, but the same calm expression. His board members greeted him, unaware of the previous night's events. Business moved as usual. Presentations, numbers, discussions of new projects. But Marcus's mind kept circling. Back to Cain. After the meeting ended, Marcus made a call to a contact in the city's police department. I want to sit in when they question him, Marcus said. Not to interfere, just to listen. The officer agreed. By afternoon, Marcus and Alex arrived at the precinct. Cain sat in a small interview room, his fake badge lying on the table like a broken toy. His head was down. He looked tired, older than he had the night before. When Marcus entered, Cain's eyes widened. Why are you here? Marcus sat, opposite him, calm as always. Because I wanted to hear from you directly, without the shouting, without the uniform. Cain shifted uncomfortably. You gonna make sure I rot in here? Marcus shook his head. No. I want to understand why you chose this path. Cain hesitated, then sighed. You wouldn't get it. You're rich. You don't know what it's like to watch everything fall apart. Marcus's voice stayed gentle. You'd be surprised what I know. I grew up with nothing. My parents worked 2 jobs each. I've been where you are, wondering if I could pay rent, wondering if tomorrow would be worse than today. Cain looked up, doubtful. Yeah, right. You, a billionaire worried about rent? I wasn't born a billionaire, Marcus said. I built everything I have from scratch, but I never pretended to be someone else to get there. Cain dropped, his gaze again. I felt invisible. No one cared when I lost my job. No one cared when I couldn't pay bills. But the second I put on that uniform, people noticed. Marcus nodded slowly. You wanted respect, not money. Cain's voice cracked. Both, maybe. But mostly, I just didn't want to feel small. The room fell quiet for a moment. Marcus studied Cain carefully. There was no anger in his eyes, just disappointment mixed with understanding. The officer standing nearby cleared his throat. Mr. Cole, we can continue questioning without you if you'd like. No, Marcus said, his gaze still on Cain. I've heard enough. Cain frowned. So what now? You gonna throw every lawyer in the city at me? Marcus shook his head again. No, I'm going to let the law do its job, but after that, I'm giving you another option. Kane blinked, confused. What? Marcus stood, buttoning his suit jacket. People make mistakes. Some ruin their lives. Others learn from them. You'll decide which one you are. With that, Marcus left the room. Alex followed him out into the hallway. You're really thinking of helping him? Alex asked. Yes, Marcus replied simply. Punishment without a chance to change doesn't help anyone. That evening, Marcus called a meeting with his foundation director. I want a new program, Marcus said. Job training for people who've lost everything. No cost, no judgment. And I want it ready fast. The director nodded. We can launch within weeks. What do we call it? Marcus thought for a moment. The Second Chance Program. A week later, Kane stood before a judge. The officers confirmed his crime, and Marcus confirmed his loss of cash and phone, though both had been returned unharmed. Kane expected Marcus to demand maximum punishment. Instead, Marcus spoke calmly to the court. Your Honor, Marcus said, what this man did was wrong, but I believe he deserves an opportunity to work honestly. I'm prepared to place him in a training program and guarantee employment if he completes it. The courtroom murmured in surprise. Kane looked at Marcus as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. The judge raised an eyebrow. Mr. Cole, are you certain about this? Yes, Marcus replied. I believe people can change if they're given the tools. The judge considered this for a long moment before nodding. Very well. The court will allow supervised release into this program, but any violation and the full sentence applies. Kane swallowed hard, looking both relieved and terrified. I don't know what to say. Marcus met his gaze calmly. Say you'll do better, and mean it. The black car moved smoothly through the streets of the city. Inside, Richard sat quietly, looking out of the tinted window. His eyes followed the passing lights, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about the fake cop, about the attempted robbery, and about how such things still happened, even in broad daylight. Next to him sat his trusted assistant, Daniel, holding a tablet and making quick notes. Sir, the press is waiting, Daniel said. They have no idea why you called them. Should I prepare the statement? Richard nodded slightly but didn't answer right away. After a few moments, he said, No statement yet. They'll hear it directly from me. His voice was calm, but there was a quiet strength in his tone. The car stopped in front of the city hall. A crowd had gathered, reporters, cameras, and curious bystanders. Richard stepped out, dressed in a sharp navy blue suit, the kind that made him look like he was ready for a meeting, not a fight. But there was a determination in his eyes. Inside the hall, the press conference began. The mayor, some city officials, and even the police chief were there, confused about what Richard planned to say. Everyone knew he was wealthy, but nobody understood why a billionaire was suddenly holding a press event about personal safety. Richard stepped up to the podium. The cameras flashed. The room went silent. Yesterday, he began, his voice steady. I was walking down Main Street wearing regular clothes, minding my own business. I wasn't in a fancy car. I wasn't surrounded by guards. I was just a man walking home. The crowd listened closely. And then, Richard continued, I was stopped by someone who claimed to be an officer. He told me to empty my pockets. He thought I had no power, no wealth, no voice. He thought I was an easy target. But what he didn't know is this. Richard paused, looking around the room. I'm Richard Lawson, and I don't stay silent. The cameras flashed even faster now. Journalists leaned forward, ready to write every word. This city has good police officers, brave men and women who protect us every day, Richard said firmly. But there are also people who pretend to be them. They put on a fake badge, a fake uniform, and use fear to take what is not theirs. Yesterday, one of those people tried to rob me. Gasps filled the room. Even the police chief shifted uncomfortably. "But I'm not here today just because of me," Richard continued. "I'm here because if this can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. A student, a mother walking with her child, an elderly man on his way home, and maybe they wouldn't have the power to stand up or to speak out. But I do, and I will." The crowd broke into murmurs. Reporters raised their hands, but Richard kept going. "I'm offering a reward," Richard announced. $50,000 to anyone who helps identify fake officers in this city. I'm also donating $2 million to support better street surveillance and proper police training. Real officers deserve respect, and criminals pretending to be them deserve justice. The room erupted with questions. Who was the fake cop? Did you catch him? What did he look like? Richard raised his hand for silence. "The police already have my statement," he said. "The investigation is moving fast. I trust they will do their job. But make no mistake, I'm not afraid of this man and I'm not hiding. He tried to take something from me, but he gave me something instead. A reason to fight harder for safety in this city." After the conference, Richard stepped outside. Reporters surrounded him, but Daniel guided him quickly to the car. Inside, Daniel smiled. "Sir, that was powerful. People will remember this." Richard looked out the window again. "Good, because this isn't just about money. It's about sending a message. No one, no matter who they are, should feel powerless on their own streets." Across the city in a small apartment, the fake cop, Marcus, watched the live press coverage on television. His hands clenched the remote tightly. Sweat ran down his face. "He's rich?" Marcus whispered to himself in disbelief. "I tried to rob a billionaire?" His mind spun. The situation had turned dangerous for him. The police would now be looking harder. And worse, the man he had targeted was not going to stay quiet. Marcus knew he had to disappear, but it was too late. His neighbor had already recognized his fake uniform and suspicious behavior. The phone lines at the police department were ringing non-stop with tips. Meanwhile, Richard wasn't done. Back at his office, he met with security, consultants, and city officials to fast-track the surveillance project. He didn't just want to protect himself, he wanted to make the city safer for everyone. As the sun set, Richard stood at the tall glass window of his penthouse. He looked down at the streets below, glowing with lights and filled with people. "This is just the beginning," he said softly to himself. Far away, Marcus packed his bags in panic, unaware that his face was already being spread through the city. Soon, he wouldn't be able to hide anywhere. The stage was set for their final meeting, a meeting that Marcus didn't want, and Richard wouldn't avoid. The city streets were quieter than usual that night. Marcus sat in a dimly lit apartment, staring at his phone. Every news alert was about him now. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire targets fake cop scam," and "Richard Lawson exposes impersonators." Panic gnawed at him. He had thought he could get away with a few small robberies, but now the entire city was watching. His fake badge and uniform were useless. Even worse, he knew Richard Lawson wasn't someone who let things slide. Marcus shoved his jacket over his face, trying to hide from reality. But deep down, he knew he couldn't hide forever. The police were closing in. Every step he had taken to escape was being tracked through cameras and tips from the public. Meanwhile, in his penthouse, Richard was reviewing security footage from last night. Alex sat next to him, pointing out details. "This is all we need to make sure he doesn't slip away," Alex said. Richard nodded. "It's not just about catching him. It's about sending a message. Crime has consequences, no matter who you think you're fooling." By midnight, Marcus realized he had no safe place left. Every apartment, every street, every alley seemed watched. He felt trapped. He thought about running to another city, but he knew it wouldn't matter. Richard had resources most people couldn't imagine. Finally, Marcus made a decision. He left the apartment quietly, hoping to surrender without confrontation. He moved quickly, but carefully aware of every shadow and every sound. At the same time, Richard's security team had located Marcus's car. It was parked near a small diner downtown. Marcus didn't know the car was traced. He approached it, unaware that Alex and two officers were already nearby, watching silently. As Marcus reached for the door, a firm voice called out, "Stop right there." Marcus froze. He turned slowly, and there stood Richard, calm but commanding. The streetlights cast long shadows, emphasizing his presence. "Mr. Cole," Marcus stammered, I just wanted to leave." Richard stepped forward. "You could have avoided all this if you had chosen differently. Instead, you put yourself and others at risk. Now, it ends here." Marcus looked around. The two officers quietly approached, handcuffs ready. He swallowed hard, realizing he had no escape. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," Marcus said quietly. I didn't know what else to do." Richard studied him carefully. "And yet, you made choices. Choices have consequences, Marcus, but they also offer opportunities to change. You can decide which path you want from here." Marcus's eyes widened. You're not going to have me locked up forever?" Richard shook his head. "You'll face the law, yes. But I also arranged something else for you. If you complete it honestly, you'll have a chance to rebuild your life." The officers stepped forward. Marcus held out his hands reluctantly, allowing them to place handcuffs on his wrists. He glanced at Richard, unsure if he should be grateful or scared. "You did the right thing by coming out," Richard said softly. "Now, let the system guide you. Learn from this. Don't waste this second chance." The ride to the police station was quiet. Marcus stared out the window, thinking about the billionaire who had stopped him, calmed him, and then offered guidance instead of anger. For the first time in weeks, he felt a strange mixture of relief and shame. At the station, Marcus met the judge, who explained that he would be part of the Second Chance program funded by Richard Lawson. He would receive training, support, and employment opportunities if he followed the rules. Any violation would result in immediate consequences. Marcus nodded solemnly. He realized that wealth alone didn't define a person, but choices did, and now he had the chance to make the right ones. Meanwhile, Richard returned to his penthouse. Alex met him in the hallway. "It's done," Alex said. "He's in the program. Everything is secure." Richard looked out at the city below. "Good. One person changed and one message sent, but more work remains. We make the city safer for everyone, not just ourselves." The next morning, Marcus began the training program. He met instructors, mentors, and other participants who had made mistakes but wanted to change. For the first time, he felt hope instead of fear. He worked hard, attended classes, and followed every rule carefully. Months passed. Marcus improved. He learned skills he never imagined he could master. He learned respect, honesty, and responsibility. And he began to see the value of opportunities given freely, without judgment. One day, he met Richard in person again, outside the training facility. "You're doing well," Richard said, his tone calm but approving. Marcus bowed his head slightly. "I wouldn't be here without you." Richard shook his head. "You got yourself here by accepting the chance. I just opened the door. You walked through it." Marcus smiled faintly. "I understand now, and I won't waste it." Richard nodded. "Good. That's all anyone can ask. Life isn't about the mistakes we make, but about how we correct them." As Marcus walked back into the training center, he felt a weight lifted from his shoulders. For the first time in his life, he knew that true power came not from money or fear, but from choices, courage, and the willingness to change. And far. Above the city in his penthouse, Richard looked out at the skyline with quiet satisfaction. One life changed, one city safer, and one lesson learned. Sometimes the strongest people aren't the ones with power or wealth, but the ones who act with patience, calm, and compassion. The city continued its rhythm below, unaware of the drama that had unfolded, but forever changed by one calm man who refused to let fear control him, and one man who chose to change for the better.